this, and this is like really like way back when. So technically the hard close at 4, does
Yeah.
there have to be a body, or does that have to be the price action has to be above it?
Well, to hard close below it, it would need to be below it, and it would have to be both sides of the body, the top and the bottom.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
because
it
that was
has
a
to be
great
both
question.
sides. If you have a little sliver over, it hasn't hard closed.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Yep.
So what was Frig's question?
Farouk was wondering, when you're doing your technical analysis and you see a move happen and you just don't have the level marked on your chart and you're like, I don't know what it tested. Like, how do you find what it tests? Like, where do you start looking, and how do you find what level it tests when you just simply are kind of dumbfounded or confused, or like, you just don't have a level marked and all of a sudden it just
Yeah.
bounces in. You're like, well, what was that? Like, how do you
Well, I
find
mean,
that?
I'll show how I found or at least what I think it was. I could be completely off base, but
You're pretty good. I bet you usually don't miss these things. So whatever you're going to go with here is probably
the
pretty
the
accurate.
reason, like, I'll be honest, I like it was tough. Like, 'cause this is a pretty random spot. This is a pretty random spot for sure.
Yeah.
But what I thought about it is that, well, going back to what has been happening in this whole thing, I mean, we've gone through this queue several times now,
Yeah. This is
where it
exactly where
was,
I would look too. I would be
you know,
looking at the range that broke up. So what I would be looking at, and what Ahivet is looking at, is whatever range this was testing from the past. This will be kind of like that final polarity in that range.
so this is, yeah, I mean, this one was really weird though, because it tested down here. It's like down here is where the test is.
So that tells you need to find origins at the beginning of all of that. So I'd go up time frame and look to see if there's any origins. That would be my first step here. There's one possible one. No, that's broken. So it can't be that. So go, no, you missed it. You missed it. You could go back to the body, and this could be creating an origin. So that could be there, right there. Yep. So I'd mark that, and I would go check the other time frames as well, because you're going the wrong direction. I think you need to start at the hourly here, because you started on the 5, I believe. Yeah, there's 2 right there. I'd mark that bottom as well. Yep. So like you've got levels that it could test, right?
You're saying the other one like here, or you said 2 origins on the hourly, sorry.
No, I wouldn't add another one. I
Yeah, I was gonna
meant
say,
2
I was
origins as in the 15 in that hour. That's what I meant when I said the
Gotcha,
2. Yeah.
gotcha.
This is how I would start to look at it, because what I would say is that whatever that big wick in the middle of your screen.
Mm-hmm.
So if you mark that top for me,
This
that
one
one
here?
there, whatever that was testing was the final hold before this move boosted up. So whatever that was testing, this is the start of that move up. So this would be the final part of this move up before you open yourself to the bottom of the next range. So whatever this was testing before it broke up, this is the final part of that range before the entire run up. So once you lose this, then your next bottom, like you're outside of the range completely. Your next bottom would be, way down there, down at 27,000 or 26,800 or something, another $1,000 or $2,000 down. Like if you go down a bit on your charts here, yeah, it would be down in that region right there that's on your screen. So 26.9, exactly where you're floating. So now you're just gapping range to range. So then you'll see the avalanche, right? So then now I would look at what's on the right side and what got tested in order to understand. But this is going to be the final parts of that range. Like this is it. There's nothing left.
Yeah. I mean, you're saying once you break this, you kind of...
No, I mean, that just begins the run up of that, like, because that was testing something from the past, right? So
Right.
like
This
whatever
was testing
origin or
something over
hold
here.
level or whatever that was testing from the past, that tests it, and then this begins the run up of that current top that we saw. So like that down
This
there.
here.
Yes, exactly. That begins
Right,
that run
yeah.
up. So this is kind of like the final part of that range, because this is the
Right.
first piece that ran up that move, which is the creation of the range, right? Like that's the deepest part of this range.
Yes. Yeah, so I was kind of expecting it to, because we had gone from hourly to 15, and I expected the last possible test to happen somewhere on the 5 down here. But there really isn't much down here, to be honest. There's like,
You've got bigger time frames anyways. At this point, I don't even think you need to look for smaller time frames. I don't know what that would accomplish. At this point, I
so
would
you're
say
not, you're never really decycling like when you've developed other time frames.
I mean, if you've already
Because
hit
like
the
my understanding is to move time frame down as you test these targets.
yeah, but you've got an hourly there. So like you can go all the way down to the hourly, and the 5 minute isn't going to tell you much when you test the hourly. You're going to need a 15 minute to hold that hourly if you test the hourly. So like at this point, if you're trying to find what was hit, there doesn't really serve a purpose to cycle down through all these time frames. Because right now our job is to find what level got hit. So at this point, I would just see what
Gotcha.
level got hit, and then from there you can build up off of it. Because if
Gotcha.
you're in a scenario, like the whole point of this is that you don't like the parentheses to this question is I don't know how to find what was hit, right? So then like you're finding what was hit. Now you need to have to find what's going to hold. So if it was indeed this hourly that was hit, now you know you have to hold the 15.
Right.
And
But none of these got hit.
this also fills in the gap. I don't know. I have no idea. Like I'm not sure. I haven't looked. Like you
Yeah,
have to go and
that's
check.
why it was interesting, because like it dove way down.
Yeah, so then you have
Like
the 15 minute
550.
would still, because that's the break level, creating a potential origin in the future. So that becomes another target. 28,668 becomes a target to create an origin since it did hold a move. That can be a possibility. That can be a target. But from here, at least you know you need to hold the 15 because your hourly was tested. You need to hold the 15.
So even though this dove so far below it into something completely different, like
Yep.
this is all you have, so this is what you're using.
Yep, absolutely. There's nothing left there. So like if you mark the 15-minute hold level now off of that move down, you'll see that's likely what was targeted.
Like this here.
Yep. Yeah, mark that 15-minute. Now you mark the wick always here. You can mark the body, you might get a little more juice out of it, but I would just mark the wick to see like where it's tested. And then just move forward in your charts. There it is. There's your 15, right? Because that's holding the move,
Yep.
right? So now you have your target off that hourly. So now at least you have something where you can say like, I know where my target was. And you know, like when you're sitting there saying like, I don't know what it hits. If you don't know what it hits, like this 28,668, if you don't know what it hits, you're not taking that trade there anyways, because it wouldn't have
Right.
even been on your radar. So the only thing you can do moving forward here is take that 15. So like when you are left with that question, I don't know what it hit, you just have to move forward and say, oh, okay, I found what it hit. That's not relevant. It doesn't mean I missed something. It's okay not to catch knives, but at least you can say that hourly got hit. Now I know a 15-minute needs to be the level to buy. Right. So now,
So
and
then
then you have your 15, which is perfect.
so you buy the 15, but then you notice that it was actually an hourly.
Yeah. And then you'd have to do the same queue
And then
again.
you just do the same queue again, so you end up on the 15 again.
Yeah. You end up on the 15 built up off of that. And that's exactly where you are right now. Yep.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Because there's
Makes
no
sense.
like finding this 28,668, that very bottom level. If you've already missed it, there's no like there's nothing there. And then like there's no purpose of going back to say, oh, I missed it. What could I do? You don't always have to catch a knife. Like if you had
Right.
your how much percentage below 28,665 did it go? Did it might have even liquidated here. No, it's pretty close. But again, that's, you know, you're catching a knife. Like sometimes we use combo levels of greediest part. So you could go and find the greediest part, but because this is an origin, there isn't going to be a greediest part. It can deep dive the move as long as it holds the hourly, and that's fine. And then you just get your architecture on the 15s, and that's it. Like you're through the move, and you've got all your answers, everything you need. But you see what I mean? Like it's not going to be a healthy or productive cycle to say, what did I miss? How could I have caught that knife? It's not always worth catching knives. Like knife catches are good when they're like extremely clear. But I mean, for me, if I look at this trade, there is no way I would have played that untested hourly break level after losing higher parts of the range. There's no way. There's no way. I would never have played that. But the 15, because it holds, yeah, sure. But you don't have to play every knife catch. I wouldn't have played that. I would have had my order set way below, or I would have been expecting to be in a short and have that shorts just pound through that. It becomes like not every trade is worth taking.
Yeah.
There are trades that are very easy to take, and there are trades that can be very difficult and that you have to like catch knives on. So like one of the my more famous Twitch streams is when I used to like make all the funny faces and scream at my camera with my my mic off. And like
Yeah.
on Twitch, I would be trading live, and it was like a great fun moment. But those were those moments where people were like, "Oh, you know, there's a last moment. How do you see?" And then if it, you know, if it breaches that, it complete collapse. Like sometimes you're gonna find knife catch levels that are just too good to take to not. You cannot pass them. It's like, yo, this is literally gonna hold everything, and it's gonna just rip the other way if this holds. This 28,668 is not one of those. I would have never taken that level. It's just it's an hourly break level that it's part of the range. Who's to say the range even holds? Like you'd have to do a bunch of TA to see where the dailies are and this and that. Maybe it hit some legacy trend. I don't know. There's a whole bunch of stuff you'd have to look at to see if it's worth taking that trade. But the 28,668 is not a trade I would have ever taken. It's just not worth it. The risk is way too high for collapsing a trend.
So,
you know,
one more question in this moment here, like let's say before this
yeah,
trade hit and you were going for the 15
yep,
and you spotted out the hourly before that trade.
yep.
Is that ever a thing where you say, okay, I'm taking the hourly because it's the bigger? No,
I would
you're
have
still
still
just
taken the
looking at
15. I would have. What's the
Okay.
measurement between the two levels? It looks very small.
Oh yeah, it's definitely small,
10%,
but
not worth missing the trade.
like,
If it was
what
like
if it was
30,
like
if,
70%?
oh, absolutely, I would have. I mean, I think that's personal choice then. I think if your gap is that big, you can see if the 15 is trying to hold and then take a 5-minute off the 15, a little higher in price. So that I think you
Right.
have to weigh the decision between maybe it's not worth, maybe I set my trade on the hourly that's 70% down. If the 15-minute holds, I want to take the 5-minute rebuy. And you're just sacrificing a little bit off the top on the 15. So you're not taking the 15, even though it held and it might have been the perfect scenario. The alternative situations that happen are the 15 doesn't hold, you liquidate your position, you hit the hourly, or you slice 5 extra percent or 10 extra percent off the top of that 15, right? Because you don't have to rebuy the 5 10% higher. You just actually bought the 15 and got an extra 10%. Like what in the terms of risk assessment and value of trade, what makes more sense, to sacrifice 10% in a winning trade or to liquidate an entire position and not be in any trades? Like, I don't care. I'll give up 10% of my profits to protect the liquidation. Like if I'm going to make 60%, oh, but I could have made 70% on top instead. It's not worth me risking that extra 10%. Like I'm still making 60% instead of 70. So like, am I really willing to risk a liquidation to squeeze out 10 more percent? Think about how often you exit trades too early. You know what I mean? Like there's a certain point there where if you're measuring against the next level, it's just not worth taking. You let the 15 hit, you let it hold, and you take the 5-minute rebuy. If you see an hourly down below, you see an hourly was tested, you've got a combo, like another hourly, a second hourly on the origin, it never gets hit. Or if it does get hit, you can just take the 5-minute off the 15. You know what I mean? Like there's not a lot of value there in trying to buy a 15 when an hourly is 70% away. You just buy the 5 and give up 10%. You just bet it's just a smarter trade. It's just a smarter way to trade. More secure, more like risk accurate, just better all over. And then that's sometimes why you see like you'll have a 5-minute level, it bounces and it's just like it rips like 200% off of some weird 5-minute level. It's like, oh, it just hit the 5. It skipped all these time frames and just hit the 5. Well, that's probably why, because it probably hit an hourly, already held the 15, and you just didn't see it, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so like I like to RA that scenario where you've got multiple levels and you're deciding like what trade is the best to take. Like when you understand how to rebuy properly, it cuts out a lot of the need to knife catch and expose that risk. Like you knife catch when it really, really makes sense. But I mean, if you're just giving up 5 or 10 or 15% to confirm a move, like just take the rebuy. The knife catch is great and it feels good when it's like some crazy range loss or something like that. Like you lose a range, you move down $2,000, you got a 4-hour combo to a 5 to a 15 to a 1, 3 to a 1, and you take the 1 minute and it catches perfectly. Like, yeah, there's not a lot of risk in taking that 1-minute trade. That's a good knife catch. You've combo leveled down some ridiculous range all the way down to the 1 minute, and that's like a 1.2% below the 4. You go all the way down there in hopes to catch it. It hits. You're like, yay, now it's good. Or maybe the 3-minute was only 5% away from the 1 minute. You combo the 4-hour down to the 3-minute, and you say, oh, like I'm taking this 3-minute because now the difference between the 5-minute and the 3-minute is like 45, 50%. That's not worth taking the 5-minute. But the 3-minute to the 1 minute is like 5%. Let me take the 3-minute. Hits the 3-minute perfectly. Awesome knife catch. You boost. Good knife catch. But in a scenario like this, it doesn't, like the hourly doesn't make a good knife catch. Neither does the 28,668. 15-minute makes a perfectly fine rebuy, especially given the fact it's only 10% away. You're not going to miss the trade over that. And you're only in profits anyways if the 15-minute holds, and you're only in losses if that 15-minute doesn't hold anyways. So it's not like you're actually getting yourself into a better scenario. Because even if you test that hourly down at 28,785, you still have to gain the 15 at 816. So if you bought 816, you have to hold 816. If you bought 785, you have to hold that anyways. In any scenario where that 15 doesn't hold, the trade collapses regardless. So there's not an extra value proposition to take the hourly unless it was 70% away. Then you could take that hourly 70% away. And if the 15 hits and holds and you missed your trade, you could just buy the 5 and lose 10% off the top. You have a no loss scenario. So like knife catches in perspective are meant to be very specific, and rebuys are extremely easy. When you know how to read the architecture, the rebuy becomes pretty straightforward. You can't really make too many mistakes on it. Hopefully that big long rant helps with some of that.
Oh, it does. Yeah, absolutely.
You just have to be very picky with your knife catches.
Yeah.
And they make sense when you deep dive down to a point where there's nothing left and it's just like a knife just slices through everything. Deep dive into the smallest time frames. And then even if you have a 4 hour, even if it tested the hourly and you never got to the 5 minute, the 3 minute, the 1 minute, all that stuff, you missed it all. If you test the hourly, then you just rebuy the 15. But why take the risk of liquidating positions when you could just rebuy the 15 anyways? Because the 15 minutes still has to develop and hold. So like in all these scenarios, that 15 still has to hold anyways. And you still have to get back over top of the 4 unless you can create a daily trend. So you have clarity no matter which level gets hit. And even if you hit the hourly, then fine, hit the hourly, miss a trade, let the 15 develop, rebuy the 15. No big deal. It's all stuff that has to happen anyway. So like, why are you exposing more risk? You know what I mean?